Secretary Bob McDonald, thank you for participating
It's
in
great to be with
this
you, Michael.
interview with me. I am thrilled to have this conversation with you. For those who are watching and listening, I'll give just a brief overview of who you are. You are a United States Army veteran. You rose the ranks at one of the largest and most profitable companies in the world, Procter & Gamble, ultimately serving as President, Chief Executive Officer, and Chairman of the company. And then you served as the 8th United States Secretary of the Department of Veterans Affairs.
You have a good memory, Michael.
Thank you. And to this day, you're still involved in a variety of boards and various nonprofits of areas you're passionate about. And so you truly live an exemplary life of service to people, service to country. And so I would love just to start and hear what fuels your call to public service.
Well, it's changed over time, Michael. First, thrilled to be with you, but when I was young, I first applied to go to West Point in 6th grade. The country, in my opinion at that time, was falling apart. I was worried about it. You think about what occurred in 1968, Martin Luther King's assassination, RFK's assassination, riots everywhere, race riots, war riots about the war in Vietnam. So I felt a need to serve. I felt a need to get involved. Over time, that need to serve has become more acute, and particularly with my military service, has turned into, and you've heard me say this before, I think, that last scene in Saving Private Ryan where Matt Damon is standing over the grave of Captain Miller, played by Tom Hanks, and he turns to his family, Omaha Cemetery, turns to his family and says, tell me that I've earned it. And that mindset is in my mind every single day. Tell me that I've earned it. The real heroes are not those who served, or not those who got medals, or not those who were in combat. It's those who lost their lives at a young age because they served. And so I'm trying to earn it. And I'm trying to earn it every single day, and that's what animates me.
Well, I think it's safe to say that throughout your career, your goal is service to people and helping others.
Yes.
How did that experience look differently and similarly for you in your time at Procter & Gamble versus your time in public service with the VA?
Well, it's interesting. When I left the military, I was looking for a company who had a purpose that was congruent with my own. And Procter & Gamble's purpose is to improve the lives of the world's consumers. On any given day, about 5.5 billion people on the planet use at least one Procter & Gamble product. So it's quite a big canvas to paint on. And while you may think of our products as being relatively pedestrian, whether it's laundry detergent or shampoo or whatever, they really do make a difference in people's lives. If you go into the most rural areas of the world, the first thing people are worried about is food and water. Water is a real scarcity. The average woman in a developing country walks 14 kilometers a day for water. We invented some chemistry that would clean that water, because she spends her time getting the water not knowing that she's getting it from a pipe or a lake. There might be a water buffalo defecating in it, and she's got to clean that water. And so typically 14 kilometers later, she's boiling the water for her family. We created a chemistry that would clean the water in 20 minutes, and as a result of that, we've saved lives. And so you say to yourself, well, do you sell that product? No, we don't. We actually give it away. And in giving it away, we save lives. On average, 2,500 children die a day from drinking unclean water. Well, is that philanthropy or is that good business? And I would argue it's both. It's philanthropic, but it's also good business because people need water to use our products. People need water for economic growth, and economic growth and development leads to more people who can buy our products. So improving lives was very real to me. And then, of course, going to the VA at a time where there was a crisis, Veterans were complaining they weren't getting care in Phoenix. How do we institute the same kind of human-centered design, putting the veteran at the center of everything we do at the VA, and how do we improve the lives of those who arguably are those who have most earned it? And so a very similar thread of continuity across the life of this need to serve and this desire to serve. It's kind of funny because when I was first nominated, Senator Richard Burr from the state of North Carolina said to me, you're a retired CEO, you've got money, you probably are tired, you probably want to relax. Why would you want this job? And I think I said what all of us in military service would say, which is, if not me, who? And if not me, who? God had prepared me for that role through the various roles I had had.
Well, service is core to our democracy here in the United States. I am curious for your thoughts for someone who might be interested either in a role in public service, pursuing that professionally, what advice you would give them. But if not pursuing a role in public service, what broader advice would you give to anyone to find their role in society?
I think my biggest belief, my primary belief is everyone needs to live a life of purpose. What is your purpose? And if you're a young person today and you're watching this video, figure out what your purpose in life is. It would be a tragedy to meander through life without direction. And all of us have cell phones and other things that are constantly causing us to react to them. Don't do that. Create a purpose, create a North Star, and go after it. And then the decisions in life become much easier because you know what your purpose is. The thing about government service is you're able to, again, paint on a very large canvas and affect more lives. At the Procter & Gamble company, as I said, arguably I could affect 5.5 billion people's lives every day. Government service, you're able to do the same thing. At the VA, when I was secretary, we had about 300,000 employees serving 17 million veterans with a budget of about $300 billion. That's a really big canvas to paint on. And imagine the effect you can have doing that. It's interestingly, it's a privilege and an honor, but on another sense, it's an obligation. It's a privilege and honor to affect other people's lives, but it's an obligation to do something positive in affecting their life. And again, it's back to, tell me that I've earned it, or at least I'm working in that direction.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, my final question is, this series that we're doing is called Democracy is a Verb. Now, we know that democracy is not a verb, but to us at the Bush Institute, we really see as a sustainable, healthy democracy needs engaged citizenry and passionate citizens who are ready and excited to be engaged in democracy. And so when you hear the words democracy is a verb, what does that mean to you? And then how can all of us be better engaged citizens?
Well, as you probably know, this is a path I've been on too. Democracy is a verb. And if I can, let me tell you two stories that, for me, animate that democracy is a verb. The first is, I like to remind people that in a democracy, the military needs to be intrinsically connected with the government, with the people in the democracy. So our military needs to represent the people of the country. If we've got left-handed people in the citizenry, we need to have left-handed people in the military. That's one of the ways we represent. We also need to have people who want to serve so that you don't have a small cohort. And that's what I worry about today, is we have a relatively small cohort, 1% of the population connected to the military. That's not a good idea in a democracy, because what we fight for in our military are ideals, not the palaces of our kings, And so I worry about that. And I like to remind people that when we fought in the American Revolution, it was a very unpopular war for the British, very unpopular. So unpopular that King George hired Hessian soldiers, which were German. He was of German descent. So he hired Hessian mercenaries to come fight in the war. In fact, the Hessian mercenaries represented anywhere from 1/3 to above of the number of British soldiers here. When Washington crossed the Delaware and surprised the British soldiers in Trenton on that famous Christmas holiday period, they were Hessians. They weren't British. And you wonder how motivated are those soldiers if it's simply a paycheck rather than some ideal that they're fighting for. Arguably, Washington and his troops were fighting for the ideal of freedom and a new country. The Hessians, they were fighting for a paycheck, and that's just not as motivating. So I think if we're going to make democracy a verb, we need to have more people serving, more people willing to serve. The second story that, and you've heard me tell this one before, the second story that I think is important, and it goes back to when you and I were together in Dallas, I think the last time, or maybe 2 times ago, and I was supposed to give some remarks to help inspire the service of the veterans who were attending the Veteran Leadership Program. And I did some research, and I wanted to use a speech that is famously called The Man in the Arena. But I don't like that title. I didn't like that title because a lot of our cohort were women, and this speech is as applicable to them. Well, Teddy Roosevelt gave this speech in 1910 at the Sorbonne in Paris, and he talked about the need to be the person in the arena. And the idea is the person in the arena is going to get knocked down, they're going to get a bloody nose, they're going to get dirty, and they're going to get up again. They may fail, but ultimately some failure is required in order to win the biggest things. And Teddy Roosevelt asked the question, what leads to a more fulfilling life? Is it being the person in the arena, or as he calls it, the cold and timid critic who's always outside the arena? And having gone through my life in relatively public positions, even today, and being criticized by extremes, either the right or the left, what's better? Is it being the cold and timid critic outside the arena, or is it being the person in the arena? Well, I did some research and discovered that speech is not called The Man in the Arena. Teddy Roosevelt never called it that. He called it Citizenship in a Republic. And to me, that's democracy as a verb. He's agreeing with you, he's agreeing with President Bush, that to have a democracy, you've got to have people willing to get in the arena, willing to get knocked down, willing to fail in order to win even bigger, not the cold and timid critics. So I would say to everybody watching this video, don't be the cold and timid critic. Climb into the arena and help us make this democracy robust. Democracy is a verb.
Certainly. Well, Secretary McDonald, thank you again for doing this with me.
Thank you, Michael. It's great to be with you always.
Always. Thank you for the impact you've made in the world, and we appreciate your time.
Got a lot more work to do. Thank you.